Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to the live. Today was the last day, y'all. We've been here for all the days of this trial, and today was the last day of closing arguments. The defense took the lion's share of the day, and then the prosecution, the government side, got to rebuttal. So I can tell you off top, this was an interesting closing from the defense. Agnafilo did the closing remarks. And some of it, I felt like, okay, you're making some good points. And some of it I thought might leave, I don't know how it might resonate with the jury. So, what we're going to do is get into, like we do on all of these, we're going to get into the literal things that were said today. But before we do that, I just want to, at the beginning, just kind of set the stage a little bit about some of what was said by Agnafilo. So he definitely accused the government of overreaching by going into Diddy's bedroom, by trying to do whatever they could do in a court. This is according to Diddy's defense attorney. He said the government overreached by going into Diddy's bedroom to take down a successful black man. He said they could not find anything illegal in his businesses, so they went after his swinger lifestyle. The defense set out today to really position Diddy as the victim. The video that that infamous video now with what happened at the Intercontinental Hotel, I really feel like all roads lead back to the video. I don't even think we have this trial if it were not for that video. The defense says it's a horrible video, that it's definitely domestic violence. It's a state charge, and Diddy's not being charged for that in this trial. So the defense did in the closing remarks, similar to what they did in the opening remarks, to kind of take ownership, because how could you not? The video is what the video is. The defense attorney talked about all this talk about the quantities of baby oil and Astroglide, and Agnafilo was like, "Well, yeah, I'm glad we got that off the street." Trying to poke fun at, it's not illegal, whether you think it's weird or whether it's maybe implying or suggesting whatever with this lifestyle. At the end of the day, you can have as much baby oil and Astroglide that you want. So he kind of made some kind of snarky comments about that. One of the things that I don't know how this will resonate with the jury. Diddy's attorney said that the situation between him and Cassie was a modern day love story. Now, I thought that might have been a bridge too far. That might have been a bridge too far. We'll see how that sits with the jury, but I just thought, I don't think I would have said that. I don't think I would have said that part. And the defense pretty much kept emphasizing that this was a swinger lifestyle. It was consensual. They kind of double, triple, quadruple down on the government will paint Sean Combs out to you as a monster, but was he a monster? And these are my words, or simply a freak? Government said it in several different ways, but they kept trying to get that across today. So I'm at the end of all of the testimony right now with you all, and I can tell you that I it still hits me a very particular way as it relates to the RICO. I still think with the RICO charge, I would not be able to decide to vote him guilty on that. I would struggle with voting him guilty on any charges related to Jane at all. And so I don't know, but let's go through what happened today from the defense's side. And I don't know, maybe I'll have a different opinion as well by the time we get there, as far as what all the defense presented today and what the prosecution also rebutted. All right. So, as I said, Mark Agnifilo is the defense attorney who is giving the closing remarks. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let's talk about who Sean Combs really is. He's a self made Black entrepreneur, a visionary, a man who built real businesses so successful and groundbreaking that major players chose to partner with him. Don't take my word for it. Derek Ferguson told you that himself. You think it's easy to be Sean Combs? It's not. How many witnesses sat in that chair and admitted they were pushed, challenged, and even changed by him? Those assistants, they said it felt like Harvard Business School. They were pushed hard. Did they like it? No. But did they grow from it? Absolutely. They did not always like him. But let's be honest, they loved him. Even the ones suing him today. And Mia, I'm not calling her that. That's not her name. That's a label the government gave her. I'll call her what she is, the witness who testified as Mia. Now let's go back to Derek Ferguson from the Bronx. He said, quote, there weren't many hiring people like me, but Sean Combs did. Why? Because he saw talent, because he built something bigger than himself, because real diversity, not just performative DEI, was something he lived. He was doing this at 24 years old, long before it was trendy, long before it was corporate policy. And what do prosecutors call it? Racketeering. That's the story they're trying to sell you. What happens next? He gets arrested. His home is raided, property destroyed. A special response team, like we're dealing with a terrorist, not a businessman, bursts in. No cameras allowed, no accountability, just chaos. His children were there, 6 of them, sitting in this courtroom, second row. The 7th, still a baby. This is the man they want to reduce to headlines and sound bites. A man who takes care of people, pays for them. Even Jane, the woman who testified against him, she's living in a home he's paying for. And the evidence, boxes of Astroglide, baby oil, a few pills, 5 Valium. They say America is safer now because of this. That's what this case has become. So what do? They wrap metaphorical yellow crime scene tape not around a murder scene, but around Sean Combs' bedroom, his hotel rooms, his personal relationships. They're not investigating crimes. They're criminalizing private choices. And let's be honest, no one called 911. They called civil lawyers. Cassie Ventura sued Sean Combs for $30 million. Why? Because he has $30 million. If he did not, no lawsuit. If there's no lawsuit, there's no criminal case. This case isn't about justice. It's about money. It's about headlines. And it's about tearing down a man who built himself from the ground up, because tearing down is easier than building. Said Diddy's attorney threw his hands up. Woo! I mean, really, woo! That's what they've got. That's the case. They needed tactical gear and flash grenades to seize lubricant. At this point, I feel like I'm in a movie. It's the 50th anniversary of Jaws, right? So let me borrow a line. We're going to need a bigger roll of crime scene tape, because apparently every bedroom, every private moment, every bottle on a bathroom shelf is a crime scene now. Let's be clear. There are things Mr. Combs has done. There are things he's not proud of. Domestic violence, we own it. That happened. That's real. And if that were the charge, you would not even be here, because he would have pled guilty, because he did that. Mr. Combs has not been charged with domestic violence. He's been charged with racketeering, with S trafficking, with being the head of some criminal empire. And he did not do all that. He's not going to lie. He's not going to pretend. But he's also not going to roll over and accept something he did not do. No, he will fight to the death for the truth. He did what he did, but not what they're accusing him of now. Now, this all that I just read is kind of to me. I don't know what the jury's thinking, but don't tell me he will not lie, because when Cassie first filed that lawsuit in which the Intercontinental Hotel incident was a part of it, he denied that. So, okay, but let's continue. And let me tell you something else. I'm not standing here with charts, graph, or some PowerPoint presentation. We're not doing digital theater today. No slides, no screens. Why? Because I've heard screen time's bad for you anyway. We're just talking. We're just going to talk person to person, truth to truth, because this case isn't about a criminal enterprise. It's about a failed relationship. It's about a love story gone sour. And the government wants you to believe that Cassie Ventura was just some passive, powerless figure, that she was dragged along, voiceless, helpless. But that's not what the evidence shows. Cassie Ventura, she's not a victim in this courtroom. She's the winner. She walked away with $30 million. He's in jail. She made her choices, and she made them with agency, intelligence, and strength. Don't let the government twist this into something it's not. Because once you strip away the drama, the headlines, the baby oil bottles, what's left is the truth. And the truth is all I'm asking you to see. Let's talk about the heart of this relationship. You've seen the texts, dozens of them. And you know what caused the conflict: jealousy. Other women. That's what sparked the fights. Not sex with male escorts. That's not what this was. Their sex life. It was mutual. It was consensual. You could even say it was in sync. Swingers, if you really want to give it a label. But no one was forcing her. No one. Cassie Ventura is a grown woman who actually enjoys sex. And I say good for her. But that's not a crime. That's not trafficking. That's not coercion. And let's not forget her relationship with Kid Cudi. You remember that? When I brought it up, I said it then, and I'll say it again. Cassie's keeping it gangster. She's not some timid, terrified victim hiding in the shadows. She's playing both sides, bold as ever, lying to both men without flinching. You think she was scared of Sean Combs? Oh, please. Picture this. She's out there saying, I'm getting myself a burner phone. And I mean, whoa, a burner phone? What is that? That's not fear. That's someone leaning into the deception, fully aware, fully in control. Now let's address the government's key witnesses. Let's talk about Capricorn Clark. The prosecution wants you to believe she was kidnapped twice. Yes, twice. The first incident, 2004. She just started working for Mr. Combs. She said she had to take 5 days of lie detector tests after a jewelry theft. 5 days. And where did this happen? On a so-called dilapidated floor of a Manhattan office building. That same floor later became Sean Combs' company headquarters. She says the guy running the test told her if she failed, they'd throw her in the East River. But every day she went home, she left, she wasn't locked up, she was not bound, she left. And I say that's not a kidnapping. She went home. That's called a job you don't like, not a felony. By that logic, are you kidnapped right now? You've been stuck here for long hours. Anyone feel kidnapped? Exactly. Then there's the second so-called kidnapping from 2011. And again, same pattern. No locked doors, no handcuffs, no ransom notes, just another exaggerated tale in a case full of them. And you're allowed to ask, why did they charge this as kidnapping? Why these particular stories? Why stretch reality to fit a narrative? You're not just allowed to ask those questions, you're supposed to. Because if this is the best they've got, Well, maybe it's not Sean Combs on trial after all. Maybe it's the truth. More than an hour into Agnafilo's closing argument, Sean Combs is wide awake and fully engaged. He looked subdued yesterday. He's focused, attentive, following every word closely. Let's talk about something fundamental to this case: credibility. Now, the judge is going to instruct you on this, and it's important. If you believe that a witness has lied on any significant point, you are free to disregard all of that witness's testimony. That's the law. That's your right. Because truth isn't something we get to pick and choose. It's either whole or it isn't. Now, let's move to another dramatic claim the government has put before you: that in 2012, Sean Combs arranged to have a Molotov cocktail thrown into rapper Kid Cudi's Porsche. Why? Because he had a relationship with Cassandra Ventura? Let's think about that for a moment. Molotov cocktail? That's not Mr. Combs's way. That's not his style. That's not how he deals with conflict, that kind of act. It's not bold, it's not direct, it's cowardly. And more importantly, what evidence do they really have? Let's look at the facts. The only DNA found on that bottle, it wasn't Sean Combs's, not even close. It was a partial profile. And you know what the lab said? It was consistent with a female contributor. That's the evidence. And yet the prosecution wants you to believe it's somehow absurd to think Sean Combs wasn't involved. They say, but Cassie testified. She said he threatened to blow up Kid Cudi's car. But where's the line between an angry threat and a criminal act? Where's the link between words and a Molotov cocktail? You have no video, no fingerprint, no confession, no eyewitnesses, just a threat, words, and a bottle with a woman's DNA. So I ask you, is that enough? Because if the government can stretch that far to connect Mr. Combs to a bottle he never touched, to a fire he never started, then what else are they stretching in this case? That's for you to decide. Now let's go back to the DNA on that bottle. It wasn't Sean Combs's. It was consistent with a female contributor. That's what the lab said. Now, if that DNA had matched Sean Combs, let's be honest, we would not have heard the end of it. They would have marched it around this courtroom like a trophy, but instead it did not help them. So what did they do? They moved on. The lead investigator, Mr. Jimenez, he did not follow up. He claimed he tried to find Cassie. He said Capricorn Clark's brother obstructed him, that things got physical. Now, I'm not standing here saying Cassie did it or that Capricorn did it. That's not what this is about. We're not here to solve every mystery of the world, but there's a pattern here. Cassie's father did not return calls. A witness was angry. These are facts. You can draw your own conclusions, and then we can get this email. Look at it. She's referring to him as Sean Puffy Combs. Why? Why use his full stage name in an email to someone familiar? Was she building a paper trail, setting up a story for later? And not once did she mention a car. So much for that theory. Let's shift to the London hotel incident. If someone willingly goes to a place voluntarily, that's not kidnapping. You don't call it that just because the story changes later. It's unfair. Let's not pretend Cassie was some hidden figure. She was in the public eye too. And what happened? The tape got sold. Where were the police in all this? Nowhere near it. And Combs? Yes, he was upset. He was calling Cassie, saying the police were going to arrest them. Was that foolish? Maybe. Was he panicking? Probably. But let's be clear. He wasn't threatening her. He was trying to get her attention. She was ignoring him, as she had every right to do. So what does he do? He goes to her apartment. He's knocking, maybe with a hammer, we heard. And yes, a neighbor called the police, not Cassie, a neighbor. The Intercontinental Hotel, it doesn't even have a police presence. So, this claim of bribery under California law, as a judge will explain to you, simply doesn't hold. Let's talk about the video. Yes, it's horrible. No one's denying that. You saw it. It's hard to watch. But the question is, why was it paid for? Why was it purchased? And it wasn't to hide a crime. It wasn't to cover up wrongdoing. It was to avoid bad publicity. Plain and simple. In the world of Sean Combs live in the world Sean Combs lives in, headlines can destroy everything you've built overnight. That's what this was about. Managing a crisis, not erasing the truth. Now let's move to the idea of witness tampering. Because the government wants you to believe that when Mr. Combs called Jane, his former girlfriend, and asked for her quote unquote friendship, it was some kind of criminal maneuver. But let's step back. Okay. What was he actually worried about? A lawsuit? That's what was on his mind, and not a looming indictment, not a federal investigation. He was scared she'd sue him too, just like Cassie, just like others lining up with civil claims. So when you hear that call, when you listen to that recording, you'll understand what you're really hearing. A man trying to stave off a lawsuit, not manipulate a witness, not obstruct justice, just trying to protect himself from another legal attack. Now let's go back to Mia, the witness who testified under that name. She told you she was out of Skrilo, out of money. That's something the government conveniently did not highlight. Okay, they took a break. Let's keep going. Let's see, the prosecutor during the break said he also claimed the intercontinental incident was a misdemeanor, and he said Mr. Combs was charged with arson. That's inaccurate. It's a RICO predicate. As for everything else, it's a fair comment. The judge said, you said, why charge a kidnapping? You invited them to ask that. I think I'm allowed to be sarcastic. That's what I was doing there. And the intercontinental video, that's a state level matter, not a federal one. Again, fair comment. Can the government propose an instruction? She said yes after the break. Fahim Muhammad, Combs' longtime head of security, is seated with Combs' family in court. Now, that is very interesting. Fahim has entered the building because I think they might be charging you, bro, if they get this conviction on Diddy. Justin Combs came into the court and was told to leave because he was wearing a shirt that read "Free Sean Combs." He went back to change and came back. All right. Do you have the proposed language? Okay, so the judge said, Mr. Agnafilo, those three remarks were grossly improper. Just to be blunt, the jury is not to speculate about the charge. I'll tell them it would be improper for them to consider that, and that they are to disregard those comments. Uh, let's see. We didn't object yesterday, but now that you're calling out Mr. Agnafilo, judge said, I didn't call out anything. There was an objection. Okay. Somebody said it was outrageous. No one here. Okay. Lawyers fighting, judge trying to settle things before the jury gets back in. Let's keep going. The jury's back in. Okay. The judge lets them know that before the break, it was suggested that you should consider why these charges were brought, talking about the kidnapping. That is not proper. I will be instructing you on the law. You are to disregard that question entirely. Okay. And the defense is back up. Now, let's talk about Mia. She loved working for Mr. Combs. This wasn't forced labor. Remember the birthday video we showed you? She was bubbly, popping. That's the real her. You are free to conclude that what you saw here in court was just an act. She told you that Sean Combs forced himself on her multiple times during her time working for him. But let's be clear, there was no unwanted sexual contact between Mr. Combs and Mia. None. And how do we know that? We look at what she did, not just what she said after these alleged assaults. What did she do? She wrote a handwritten letter to Mr. Combs, a warm, affectionate letter. She made Instagram posts, effusive, loving, public declarations, not private pain, not avoidance, but praise. She wanted the world to see her admiration. You are free to conclude that what you saw here in court was just an act. If Mr. Combs believed anything was improper, would he have threatened to tell Cassie? Of course not. It was consensual. When Mia says it wasn't consensual, she's not telling the truth. There was no unwanted sex conduct. Her feelings for Mr. Combs were not platonic. Mr. Steele questioned her about those cheerful photos and glowing messages. That wasn't just a job, it was admiration. Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to show you is demonstrative, meaning you won't be taking it with you into the jury room. But I want you to consider what it represents. This scrapbook, this was something Mia made, and I'm going to read from it. Happy 45th birthday, Puff. This is from 1991 to 1999. I hope it stirs up nostalgic feelings. Look how great you've become. You don't write something like that unless there's real admiration. You don't put that kind of time into something unless there's love, genuine love. You can't fake that. Don't lose sight of what this case is really about. It wasn't just a job. It wasn't just business. Sean Combs gave people more than paychecks. He gave them a home, a place to belong. Look at this photo. Staff, friends, all smiling, KK, D-Rock, Fahim. What's the first word that comes to mind? Joy, family, belonging. Sean created something remarkable. He moved people deeply in their hearts and in their souls. That's not racketeering. And when Mia was told she was being let go, when she realized she'd have to leave that special place, her reaction, she said, "My life is over." KK, the so called racketeering co conspirator, wrote back, "OMG, WTF, Mia, that's not funny. Answer your phone or I'm calling your parents." That doesn't sound like someone trying to escape forced labor. That sounds like someone heartbroken to leave. Now let's talk about drugs. Government says personal use is just a distraction. But Brendan Paul, the man caught with the cocaine, testified clearly these were for his personal use. He even said, "I forgot to take the cocaine out of my bag." And then he said, "I've got the best lawyer in the world and my charges were dismissed." That's his story, not Sean Combs's. Was Sean a drug dealer? No. Was he selling drugs? Absolutely not. Cassie claimed he was a drug addict. Okay, let's accept that for a moment. How's he supposed to get those drugs? Grow his own Xanax? Yes, they found drugs in his house, but using drugs and distributing drugs through an enterprise are two very different things. And that's what you're here to decide. Did Mia go on to work for Madonna? Yes. That's what assistants do. They support people in high powered creative industries. You think Beyonce walks into CVS to buy Astroglide herself? Now, why you had to bring Beyonce up into this, huh? Do you think Beyonce walks into CVS to buy Astroglide herself? Of course not. That one right there made me pause. Assistants handle those things. That doesn't make it racketeering. There is no credible evidence of intent to distribute. Take David James, for example. He's in St. Tropez. Asked to get an 8-ball of cocaine. I asked him on the stand, did Sean Combs have something to do with that? His answer, no, I kept it from him. Think about that. If he was trying to keep it from Sean, what does that tell you? These are artists, people in entertainment, living fast and living loud. That's not racketeering. There's been a lot of dirty talk in this courtroom. I know you've heard it, you remember it. And now they want to turn that into a federal trafficking charge. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what was really happening between Sean Combs and Cassandra Ventura. I'm not going to pull you back through every single text message. You've seen them. You've read the screenshots. What I'll do instead is tell you the story, their story, because this wasn't some cold criminal enterprise. This was his personal life. They were in a romantic, intimate relationship. They were swingers. They explored their sexuality together. Does that make you uncomfortable? Maybe. But does it make it a crime? Could you theoretically S traffic your girlfriend? Sure. If you're selling her into prostitution and making money off of it, but that is not what was happening here. Sean Combs didn't profit from their intimacy. He wasn't making deals or booking transactions. He was in a complicated, very real relationship. And in relationships, real ones, sometimes your partner likes something you don't. And over time, your likes start to align. You share experiences, you bend, you grow. That, ladies and gentlemen, is love. That's what was going on with Cassie. She was confident. She knew what she wanted. She wasn't some passive figure clutching her pearls in shock. No, she had S confidence. She had control. And I know some of this testimony and evidence has been graphic. I know it's a lot, but it's important because when you see the full picture, it tells you something different than what the prosecution is painting. You want to hear something personal? My mother was thrilled when I became a lawyer, so proud. And today, here I am standing before you, reading graphic messages that Cassie herself sent to Sean Combs before that night at the Intercontinental in 2016. That's how real this is. This isn't racketeering. This isn't trafficking. This is two people in love navigating a complicated adult relationship. Cassie and Sean were in a relationship. They were in love. Were all those encounters perfect? No relationship is. But let's be real. Cassie didn't have the same attitude as Jane. She never expressed disgust over hotel nights. She wasn't recalling from them. She never expressed disgust over hotel nights. She wasn't recalling from them. These were two people exploring intimacy. Cassie wanted this, including being close emotionally, physically. It's like this. My wife's from Los Angeles. I hated LA. Now I love it. Sorry, that's how life works. Cassie, she's not some powerless figure. She's smart, sexy, powerful. She dated Michael B. Jordan, arguably the most handsome man on the planet. She's not someone who gets pushed around. She makes choices. She wasn't clutching her pearls in shame. She was saying, "This is how I'm intimate with the man I love," quote unquote. And sometimes you do come to love that kind of closeness. Yesterday, they brought up a few moments she might not have wanted in Cons, Daniel Phillips, the Intercontinental. Okay. But if she enjoyed 75 of those experiences, can number 76 really be called S trafficking? Are we really going from 0 to 60 like that? Ooh, he's coming hard at Cassie. I wonder how the jury is feeling about that. I wonder how the jury is feeling about that. Okay. So again, the defense attorney said but if she enjoyed 75 of those experiences, can number 76 really be called S trafficking? Are we really going from 0 to 60 like that? There's no text from her saying, "I don't want this anymore. I want out." And when Mr. Donaldson cross examined Daniel Phillips, that what did we see? A text. Sean writes, "Are you horny?" And that's what we're calling racketeering. She consented. She expressed her fantasies. That was their dynamic. She even wrote, "I won't do too many of these," then joked about what her mother would think. She said, "My body is on fire." They were experiencing all of this together willingly. Now, I'm going to play a portion of the Intercontinental video in this clip. It's more likely than not the phone recording belongs it's more likely than not that the phone recording belongs to Mr. Combs. And here she is. I'm not going to show you the part where he throws her down. You've already seen it. I'm not avoiding it. And then we see Mr. Combs, a famous man, sitting there in a towel and socks. Cassie seems to be telling him, "You're being ridiculous. Go back to the room. Look closely." It appears she says, "Go back to the effing room." There's nothing ominous in that room. And just 5 days later, what does Sean text her? "I'm so sorry." And how does Cassie reply? "LOL, I was just listening to sorry." They're clearly moving on emotionally and conversationally. Cassie even texts Sean, asking how she's supposed to know if the drugs would be too strong or if he'd drink too much. This was all in the context of the hotel. She admitted herself sometimes she hit him first. This was a messy, mutual, complicated relationship. Now she alleges there was a R, but it did not happen. And importantly, that claim is not charged in this case. When asked directly, did he R you, she said yes. But there wasn't much detail, no buildup. Maybe it did not happen. And then we get another message. Cassie is now with her current husband, where she writes to Sean, "I told myself I did not want anything to happen, but I'm not stressing over it. I know you aren't either." Then she gets a FaceTime from her husband's boogie bat phone. Sean responds, "You act like a heartbroken angel. Stop living your lie." And what does Cassie say? "I don't know who that was. I was just saying thank you for last night. I enjoyed it." That's the classic line. And somehow later it becomes R. But where's the evidence? There isn't any. Because what actually happened was consensual sex. And I have no choice. I have to respond, even though it's not part of the formal charges. She was asked, "What kind of pain did Sean cause you?" And what did she say? She spoke of his pain, his shame. She said the most painful thing was carrying his shame. That's powerful. And Jane said something nearly identical. She said, "I felt like my partner was trusting me with something deeply vulnerable, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be his escape." And let's not forget what else Jane said. She did not want to see young Miami on a bigger yacht with him. That's not S trafficking. If you really examine this case honestly, you'll see this isn't about crime. It's about people in love, working through the raw, complicated layers of that love. It's messy, it's intimate, it's human. There was an implication that Cassie wasn't promoted as much as other artists on Bad Boy. But even Capricorn Clark, and I'll admit she's a flawed witness, testified that Cassie actually received the lion's share of support. Both sides showed videos to the witnesses, but here's the key point. Cassie's videos were stored on her own devices. She claimed those devices were damaged, yet the experts still managed to recover the footage. Now, I can't tell you what those videos truly meant to her. That's personal. But what I can say is she did not delete them. And in those videos, the hotel rooms are luxurious. The atmosphere is vibrant. You hear Usher playing in the background. It's celebratory. It's intimate. Let's be real. You were never supposed to see those videos. No one was. And as for Mr. Combs releasing them, he might have made that threat in a moment of anger, but let's not kid ourselves. He was never going to do it. Not a chance. Cassie was in there eating watermelon, music playing. These were beautiful, intimate nights. As for the two escorts, one of them I call the Punisher, a nickname he picked up playing basketball on West 4th Street. They genuinely believed Cassie was into them. Honestly, they were a little naive. Now let's be honest here. Sean Combs, the only man in America to record is let's be honest here. Is Sean Combs the only man in America to record intimate moments at home? Homemade videos? That's become a pretty common thing nowadays. And Jane, she likes to post things. Instagram, social media. That's her world. That's her lane. From where I stand, I genuinely believe Jane loves Sean Combs. You all know who the father of her child is. Oh, we do. All right. You know who she was with in Vegas. She was comfortable in that world. This wasn't something foreign or forced. Now the government, now I thought that's interesting what he said just now, because he's basically saying the jury and everybody else knows that her baby father is 50 Cent. So so much for anonymity. Now the government isn't saying every hotel night was S trafficking. They're zeroing in on one specific moment, September 2023, and they're building that moment around jealousy over a yacht. Sometimes Jane didn't even like the men involved. She said one of them smelled bad. What happened? That man was sent home. Escort 3187 was dismissed. She called him a bum. Still, he got paid. There was no sex, just compensation for his time. That's not trafficking. That's what actually happened. But yesterday, the prosecutors just brushed past all of that, like none of it mattered. Now let's talk about Jane. She wanted these encounters. She reached out to her guy Cabral, the one she liked. She called him muy caliente. That wasn't fear, that was attraction. Then came the sobriety party. Jane was upset, not about trafficking, but about Gina. She got emotional, felt jealous, and afterward, she said she regretted what happened, said she resented it. But let's be clear, she agreed to it. That's what she said, unfortunately. Yes, but she agreed. That's the whole point. She agreed. We can leave it right there. Now, about the house, Jane had, in my view, the worst lawyer imaginable. She was getting low child support from the father of her child. 50. Did he just name did he just name the father of her child in court? Mr. Combs stepped in and did the right thing. Lord, is 50 Cent gonna respond to that? The Diddy lawyer said he wasn't paying, he wasn't, she was getting low child support from the father of her child. I go on, Mr. Combs stepped in and did the right thing. He helped her. He paid. He did not abandon her. He supported her. It's a classic case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. He's paying for a house for a child that isn't even his responsibility. Woo-wee. It's not going to like that. He's not going to like that at all. And somehow, what's being used against him? And somehow that's being used against him. They watched adult films together. Jane even got him a mobile TV, saying it might get him to make less of his own. Honestly, I'm not sure that's how it works, but that was her idea. You've seen the photos. You've seen the photos. Combs is holding a big pour of wine. There are strawberries in the glass, but let's be honest, it's not exactly a fine dining moment. Then, not long after, maybe half an hour, something inexplicable happens. Jane slams his head into the counter and calls him a pedophile. Over what? A woman named Ollie? Ollie who? Who, by the way, is of age. Now Jane claims Combs kicked in her doors, but even by her account, he never hit her. And to be clear, I'm not saying he should have put the point, I'm not saying he should have, but the point is he did not. What do we know? We have a text from Jonathan Perez at 10:14 saying they're fighting. Just normal being jealous. Even the police said, don't come, all good. Then Jane changes into a different dress. No sweats, no hiding. She says she stayed behind a wall for 2 hours. I submit to you, that just does not add up. Maybe she's mistaken, or maybe she's not being honest. She eventually comes back. Combs is outside on the street. No violence. Yes, we've seen that it looks like she was hit, maybe twice, but it doesn't look like he hauled off and beat her. It doesn't look like he dragged her. Let's be real. I don't know if that's a good point at all. Let's be real. She's documenting injuries. That's what we're seeing. Now let's talk about Anton. She sees him in Vegas, and how? With a rapper of some prominence. You can draw your own conclusions. She's watching Anton have sex. That's what she says. When asked what she did, she admits, I showed my breast. Why? It sounds like something out of spring break, not coercion. A rapper walks up to her. He asks about the swinger lifestyle. Jane gives him Cabral's number. Think about that. She's making introductions. She's engaging. And this whole story, it just doesn't make sense. Let's say, for argument's sake, something else happened in Vegas. But then who shows up at her house? Anton. The same Anton. You think that's just a coincidence? The man at her house is a porn star. That's what he does. And Jane, she knows there's an investigation going on. You have to ask, did she help start it? Her account does not add up. Why was she so persistently violent in the middle of all of this? She says, I did not want to do it, and yet she let Anton in? I submit to you, they were both trying to move past something. It was oral sex. That's what happened. At the end of the day, her story is full of holes. You could even argue that she initiated parts of it. Maybe she wanted something in her back pocket, something to hold on to, maybe to use later, maybe not. But that level of sudden, unprovoked violence, she never truly explains it. And now it's on you because you're here for a reason. You were chosen because you've lived full lives. You bring experience, wisdom, and perspective to this courtroom. Let's talk about the government's choices. Out of all the possible people involved, they only brought in two of the escorts, the Punisher and Daniel Phillip. They could have called up others. They could have offered immunity, but these are their witnesses. And neither of them admitted to being a prostitute. Let's think about this. If someone gets paid without having sex, they're being paid for their time, not for sex. And in Sean Combs's mind, that's legal. It would be an entirely different story if someone sat there and said, I had sex, and Sean Combs personally negotiated the deal. But no one did. I assume in every adult film, the actors are paid to have sex, and yet it's legal. So if he thought it was legal, that matters. Now let's talk about racketeering. Turn to page 14 of the judge's charges. It says that for racketeering to apply, the enterprise, the group, must have an organization. And you're going to hear what that means. Only Sean Combs is on trial here. No one, not a single witness, sat in that chair and said, I was part of a racketeering enterprise. Not one. And that is the biggest disconnect in this entire trial. The greatest divide between what you've actually heard in this courtroom and what the prosecution claims happened, there's a gaping hole in their case, a complete lack of evidence to support the charge they've built this around. Let's be clear on one thing. They did not charge racketeering. They charged a racketeering conspiracy. And to prove a conspiracy, they need at least one co-conspirator, but they don't have one. They're pointing at KK, but what does the evidence actually show? KK wasn't running a criminal enterprise. KK was helping. That's it. Carrie Morgan, their own witness, says she called KK and D-Rock, not because they were criminals, but because they were trusted, because they were helpful. This isn't a conspiracy. This is a stretch. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost done. just a few more minutes of your time. But before I close, I want to remind you of something critical, something that cuts to the heart of this case. There were a number of incidents brought up during this trial, dramatic moments, serious accusations, but none of them resulted in charges. Firearm possession, not charged. Whatever happened between him and Suge Knight, not charged. The incident involving Carrie Morgan and the coat hanger, not charged. Even the violence against Miss Ventura, as disturbing as it was, not charged. They tied it to S trafficking, but never charged it directly, and that matters. It matters because this is a courtroom, not a tabloid. Justice demands precision, not emotion, not headlines. This is very important. It takes courage to acquit. It takes real boldness to sit in the jury room and say, the evidence doesn't support these charges. But that's what I'm asking of you now, to summon that courage, to call this exactly as you see it. After Miss Ventura filed her lawsuit, the government rushed in. They saw a high profile name, Sean Combs, and they decided they were going to build a case. Not because the evidence demanded it, but because of who he is. He was targeted, and that's not justice. So now it's your turn to do what's right. You should feel bold, feel courageous. You've seen the evidence. You know what this case is and what it's not. He sits here innocently. Send him home. Return him to his family who have waited long enough. Thank you. Whew. Okay, we're going to get into the rebuttal here in a second, but I just want to pause at the end of the defense's closing comments. And if I were Diddy, I would be worried. I think the defense made a lot of good points, but I think that mixed in with so much of the basically kind of like dragging Cassie, and I mean like dragging her hard. I don't know how that's going to go over with the jury. I just don't. I don't know how it's going to go over with the jury to say, he wasn't trying to, go and get this tape to like prevent himself from being charged from a crime. He was just trying to, manage a crisis. So he was trying to avoid bad publicity. That didn't sit right to me. So all I can say, and this is just my first reaction after going through everything the defense said, I don't feel like it was a home run. I don't. We'll see how the jury takes it, but I don't feel like it was a home run. I think he got closer maybe to a home run on the closing remarks very specific to Jane. I think that it's a good chance that the jurors are going to see Jane and Cassie very differently. But that's just my initial response after going through everything from the defense team. The closing comments to me did not feel like a home run. And quite frankly, I feel like Diddy needed a home run in this closing statement. I felt comparing the defense's closing statements to the government's closing statements, the government statements to me felt more buttoned up. They felt more concise to me. They felt more, I don't know, it felt I could feel the drama that the defense attorney Agnafilo was trying to add into what he was doing, but I don't know. And of course I have no idea if anyone on the jury is feeling the same, but it doesn't feel like a home run. It doesn't feel. I think he made really good points around the RICO charge, and we'll just see how it lands with the jury because they will have this case starting Monday morning. All right, so let's go. We know the prosecution is going to rebut, so let's see what happened here. The jury exited. Mr. Agnifilo repeatedly raised conduct for which Combs was never charged and claimed he was targeted. We request curative instructions. Mr. Agnifilo, you should have expressed that differently, but you focused on the lack of conspiracy. How is asserting Mr. Combs was targeted not improper? Agnifilo said no one filed a complaint with law enforcement. It's a fair comment. He used the word targeted. That's improper. We need a curative instruction. No comments. The government raised the argument before the trial. They raised that argument before the trial and lost. Okay, what in the world did I just do? They wanted now Judge Barrow. Okay, let me see if I can get back to where I was. Okay, wanted now. Let's see. The government proved lost now is inappropriate. Judge, I plan to add an instruction. The jury must focus solely on whether the government provided each charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay. Bedrock law prohibits these arguments to the jury. I will give the instruction. We prefer Monday. I'll give it when the jury returns in 5 minutes. It doesn't feel like the judge is really feeling the defense at all. Okay, the jury returns. Let's get down here. Okay, and the judge says this to the jurors. You heard statements that Mr. Combs was targeted. That has no place in your deliberations. Do not consider it. Ms. Comey, okay, and here's the rebuttal. Okay, so this again is the government rebutting, and after this, it's a wrap. Okay, it's a wrap. So the government says this trial at its core is about one thing: how, in Sean Combs' world, no was never an option. The defense wants you to believe this is about flawed victims or a government with an agenda, but don't be misled. This is about Combs and the choices he made repeatedly, deliberately, and with impunity. They want you to believe this wasn't sex trafficking, that the men flown in were not paid for sex, but for their time. That's absurd. That argument doesn't even pass the laugh test. That was kind of funny. Doesn't even pass the laugh test. Combs ignored no, especially from his girlfriends, and he assaulted them. They argue he didn't pay for sex or run an enterprise or lie, but the evidence shows he flew sex workers across the country to be with Cassie and Jane while he mastered. Okay, you can fill in the blank. It wasn't for a conversation, it was for sex. Remember Daniel Phillip? He said he was paid for sex. When he did not perform, he wasn't paid. And Punisher, $500 for no sex, thousands if sex occurred. The prosecution had access to all witnesses, not just these two. They might have worked gratis for a masked celebrity, but they didn't. They were paid. The defendant is guilty of counts 3 and 5. An enterprise can mix lawful and unlawful acts. KK, they say, witnesses were equally available, but did they agree to at least 2? KK, they say witnesses were equally available, but did they agree to at least 2? Yes. Kid Cudi corroborates the kidnapping. She was forced to go with them. Mr. Agnifilo claims Combs fought with his girlfriends, but when it comes to men, he needs guns. They claim he had nothing to do with the Molotov cocktail that exploded Scott Muscatti's car. But you heard Cassandra Ventura. She testified clearly. He said he was going to blow up the car, and then the car exploded. No, he didn't light the fuse himself, but that's not how power like his works. He made the threat, and lo and behold, it happened. London hotel incident. Combs stomped Cassie's face and forbade her from going home. That is kidnapping. Eddie Garcia was afraid to call the police under their agreement. Combs said, watch your spending. That's bribery. This is a man who can't even get his own water bottle or charger. He delegates. KK knows all about the Wild King Knights escorts. The only reason for thousands in hotel rooms to pay is to pay escorts. KK's knowledge implicates Combs in court, count one. As for drugs, distribution to Cassie and Jane is distribution. That meets the legal standard. Combs claims they wanted it. The defense's theory is absurd. Cassie wanted to be urinated on. Jane wanted S with Anton after being beaten. Mia wanted penetration. Cassie and Jane wanted days in oil, high heels, strange men, and UTIs. That was. Mia said no. Cassie said no on her 29th birthday. Jane said no before Anton after she was beaten. These women had no reason to lie. The defense says it's all for the money, but Cassie already got paid. Let's think about that. These three women, Cassandra, Jane, and Mia, what possible reason would they have to lie? None. There is nothing for them to gain by sitting in this courtroom, barring their trauma, reliving humiliation. Cassandra Ventura had already received $20 million in a civil settlement. She could have stayed home, kept quiet, and walked away. But instead, she chose to come here to testify under oath, to read her own explicit messages in open court, to hand over private videos of herself, to be scrutinized and dissected. Does that sound like someone chasing money or vengeance? No, that is a woman who is standing up for what is right. That is courage. That is the truth. And that truth is what this trial demands. Let's talk about Jane, Sean Combs' former girlfriend. You've heard the claims against him, and the defense wants you to believe she made them for money. But if that were true, where's the lawsuit? She has not sued him. In fact, the truth is quite the opposite. She has a financial incentive to support him. Sean Combs is still paying her rent. He's still covering her legal fees. That doesn't look like someone trying to cash in. That looks like someone still under his reach. Why did Jane or even Cassandra Ventura sometimes set up the so-called freak-offs or hotel nights themselves? Because he told them to. But for Jane, it was also about survival. Choosing the men was the only control she had left. It was her attempt to reclaim even the smallest piece of autonomy. And as for Miss Ventura, she moved under the weight of constant looming violence. This is what I want you to remember. In a case where violence is so frequent, it's easy to become numb to it. But each act was awful every single time. And the defense, they want to pull apart the sex from the violence as if they were two separate realities. But being a domestic abuser is not a defense to S trafficking. Those beatings were not random. They were deliberate. They were meant to keep her in line, obedient. That control did not vanish when she entered a hotel room. If anything, it tightened, because that's when she was at her most vulnerable, high, naked, and completely exposed. And those texts, the ones that seem loving or even explicit, don't paint the full picture. You can't read them in isolation. Between those messages were bruises, fear, coercion. Don't underestimate this man. He is intelligent, sharp. He knew when they hesitated. He could read even their subtlest reluctance. The defense wants to portray Jane and Cassie as strong women, and they are, but not in the way the defense imagines. They are strong because they survived what he put them through. They are strong because they are standing here today speaking the truth despite everything they endured. I couldn't believe it when the defense suggested that Cassie somehow won in all of this. What prize is that? What did she win? Black eyes, a gash on her head, days of sex while battling a UTI? That was her so-called prize? And let's not forget, Miss Ventura told you herself she would have given every cent of that $20 million settlement if it meant she never had to live through those freak-offs. That doesn't sound like someone who cashed in. That sounds like someone who was traumatized and finally found strength to speak. Cassie may have been grateful for the help Sean Combs gave her with her singing career, and Jane might have welcomed the money he sent. But that wasn't generosity, it was control, it was calculated. This wasn't kindness. It lulled them into becoming dependent on the defendant. It trapped them. What looked like support was a cage. What looked like care was manipulation. That's how he kept them in his world, not with chains, but with favors turned into obligations. When Combs assaulted Cassie, it was not about a phone. Don't let them reduce it to that. What you saw on that surveillance footage from Los Angeles hotel in 2016, that wasn't an isolated outburst. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the boiling point of something much bigger, much darker. The real truth, Sean Combs had hit Cassandra Ventura during a freak off. That's what she told you. She left. She tried to walk away, and that's when the assault happened. That moment in the hallway was not just violence, it was the culmination of an entire scheme of coercion, a pattern of control, of manipulation, of fear. For years, the defendant used sex, drugs, power, and money to dominate these women. And when the illusion cracked, when they pushed back, he used his fists. What happened in that hotel was not spontaneous. It was the result of everything that came before it. Don't forget, Cassie may have been grateful for Sean Combs' support with her music career, and Jane may have appreciated the financial help. But let's be clear, that was part of the trap. The money, the opportunities, they were not gifts. They were tools, tools to build dependence, tools to keep these women close. It lulled them into thinking they needed him. And once they depended on him, he controlled them. Now let's talk about June 2024, the second violent incident I want you to remember. Jane told you what happened. There was a vicious fight. Combs beat her so badly that welts formed on her head and a black eye was coming in. Then he made a demand. Sean Combs demanded she perform oral sex on a male escort. She said no, repeatedly. And what did he do? He leaned in close and asked, "Is this coercion?" In that moment, he showed exactly what he knew. He knew what coercion was. He knew what S trafficking meant. He did it anyway. He made a deliberate choice. He knew the law. He was under investigation at the time. He was under investigation at the time, but he did not care. Why would he act like that? Knowing the spotlight was already on him, because he believed he was untouchable. He believed he was above the law. For 20 years, Sean Combs got away with it. That's not speculation. That's the pattern. That's the reality. And in his mind, he was untouchable. No consequences, no accountability, just power, control, and silence. He never believed these women, the ones he hurt, the ones he silenced, the ones he controlled would ever speak, not publicly, not under oath, not in a courtroom, but they did. And now it's in your hands. Because today, after all the abuse, after all the fear, they stood up. And now I'm asking you to do the same. Find him guilty. The judge dismisses the jury. Y'all, I'm just gonna say, in these closing arguments, to me, the government did a better job. They just did a better job. It's more succinct, it flows better, the points are kind of rapid fire. It feels it feels less emotional and feels like what they're presenting is more fact based. This is how they're presenting it. I don't know if the defense side had the wrong person to deliver the final comments or what, but we'll see how it resonates with the jury. It goes to them Monday morning, and we'll see what the outcome is. But my first reaction, now having gone through all of the closing statements and the rebuttal from the government to me did better in this portion of the program. And that might be a problem for Diddy. I think Diddy still may have a good chance of being found not guilty on RICO, but all the other stuff, I don't know. And like I said, I feel like the government just did a way better job with their closing argument. So we'll be back here on Monday. The judge is to give the instructions to the jury before they're released to start deliberating on this case. Some people are expecting this to take days, so maybe have it all wrapped up by Wednesday, coming up against the July 4th holiday. They think that might be the case. But and everybody knows the thought is that if a verdict comes back super fast, that normally that means guilty. So we'll see what happens. And yeah. Out of all of this, I definitely saw a video yesterday where one of the twins, I think, was rubbing her tears away when she was coming out of court. I feel very sorry for or my heart goes out to his kids, especially the daughters, the young daughters. My heart goes out to them. I think they try to put on a brave face when they're facing all of this and all the media attention. They can't go anywhere without being like circled and asked all kinds of questions. So I can't even imagine what this is like for them. As far as Diddy is concerned, I'll repeat here what I've said many, many times as we've live streamed this trial. My thought has been Diddy is going to prison for something. It's just a matter of for which charges and how much time. I felt like that early on. As the trial went on, though, I started feeling like, especially when Jane hit the stand, I started feeling like, okay, maybe he might even get acquitted of some of these other things because Jane did not come across on that stand to me as a victim at all. Right. So I thought a jury or some people on the jury might have a hard time putting you in prison for life, especially for Jane. Right. She did not come across as a good witness. She did not come across as a victim to me at all. So that's where I was then. So I guess at the end of it, what I'm thinking, and also y'all, we never know what a jury's going to do. Okay. But I definitely think the jury is going to find him guilty of some of these charges. I think Diddy is definitely going to get prison time. For which charges that remains to be seen. But I don't see a full on acquittal happening. I think it's very likely they could end up in a mistrial. I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump will come through and pardon Diddy if he gets convicted. And I think that's kind of where we stand. If I were a juror, how would I vote? How would I, as far as the 5 counts? The RICO for me would be not guilty. I'm sorry, everything they've shown, everything they've tried to do to support, to show that this was a criminal enterprise. I don't think they showed that this behavior was in support of the furtherance of a criminal enterprise anyway. It's just even the points they tried to make about, excuse me, what is a RICO, and it may not be the traditional mafia type thing you think of. It just didn't land for me. So I would definitely vote not guilty on RICO. As it relates to the charges far as the paid S workers and that type of thing, with definitely I would probably find him guilty on that because he did that. When it comes to the S trafficking with Jane, I definitely will say not guilty. The S trafficking with Cassie, I'm a bit up in the air on that one. And I don't know. It will probably depends on what we get in that room and start talking about how I sway. Because when I know that there was all of the stuff we saw where you were down with it, you were down with these freak offs and all of that, and then you're saying on certain other occasions you weren't. I don't know, how do we know like what's true? I mean, you're saying at certain points you were, he's saying you were down with it. We've seen evidence that you were down with it. So how do we then just say, well, because she said it, I'm going to find, but the part that gets me with that, and why I think that would be something I don't know, after deliberation with my jurors, I'll probably see where I land, is the fact that on that videotape, the 2016 video for Intercontinental Hotel, when she was leaving, the security guard said there was a man in the room. So it is not hard to say that when he ran her down at that elevator, threw her down, kicked her, and was dragging her back towards the room, it's, to me, it's not a stretch to say that he was dragging her back to something she didn't want to participate in. So I could see how the jury might say, yeah, in that case, you as trafficked her because she no longer wanted to do it. I could see how they could make that connection. So, yeah. So for me, on pretty much all counts related to Jane, I probably would vote not guilty. Um, I would definitely vote not guilty on Jane with the S trafficking based off of her testimony and all the other stuff we saw around her. I would definitely vote not guilty on the RICO charge. Uh, Everything else, let's just say we will probably be deliberating for a couple of days to see if we could come to some kind of agreement or consensus. So, but that's just my 2 cents and how I would see it if I were a juror. Um, this is where deliberation counts, right? I think they'll be talking amongst themselves and trying to, come to some kind of consensus, and there are going to be opinions and thoughts and um, thinking back to testimony and evidence, and we'll see where they land. Uh, all I can also say too, before I leave you all on this Friday, is it Friday already? Yes, it is that Diddy brought this on himself. And I'm not saying that to say that people don't have to feel bad for just seeing another person kind of just destroy their own legacy. And you would wish he would have chosen. You wish you maybe I would feel bad that he didn't choose a different path, because he has had many big incidents in his life where he got away with stuff, or he was able to bounce back from things that should have made him say, thank you, and I'm going to get my shit together. But he did not do that. So he has brought this current situation on himself. This is a situation where I don't think he's going to be able to pay his way out of it. I don't think he's going to necessarily be able to power his way out of it. And I will be back here after the jury comes in with their verdict to let you know if it ended up being the jury kind of saw things the way I've been talking about on these lives, or if the jury said not guilty and he's acquitted on all charges. I would lose money if I had to bet, because I would most certainly bet that's not happening. Okay. All right, y'all. Well, I hope you all have a fantastic Friday. Thank you for stopping by this live. Please thumbs up the video, drop a comment, even if it's just to say hello. If you are not a subscriber already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate the support. And until the next time, bye, y'all.